Hello, hello. Today we are going over how to basically do content batching and how to batch your content without losing your mind. So to kick things off, hey Ariel, hey Liz. It's great to see you guys. So to kick things off, but the biggest thing I want to touch on before we get started is the mindset that you have when you approach content creation. A lot of people, when they start thinking about content, they get really overwhelmed and they just kind of freeze and say they have like this huge case of idea drought. And I can totally understand and relate. Before I had a system, idea drought was something I dealt with a lot, especially when I was working for clients and was approaching a new topic or a new idea and often didn't have a good grasp on what I needed to really dig into first. So the most powerful words that you can tell yourself are those ones that are negative or the ones that are positive. I prefer to focus on the positive. So before you even get started thinking about content, eliminate any excuses that you have. You can do anything you want to do. So if you put it into your head that you want to create content, then you can and you will, and you'll make it happen and you'll make it possible every single time. So content batching is basically where you set aside an intentional time to focus on content creation, whether it's creating a blog post, forming a script for a video, writing social media captions, creating digital strategy. It's any of those actions that allow you to work smarter and not harder. I'm a huge, huge fan of that. I love to use really limited time. I juggle kids and work and family commitments. So I know that the time that I have is really finite, and I like to be able to apply it and work through it as quickly as I possibly can while producing really quality content for my audience. So the first tip I have is to keep a running list of ideas. You always want to have, whether it's a notebook or a digital list in an app or a Google board or a Google sheet, some way to capture all the ideas that you're possibly going to have for the content that you're going to create for your business. Really knowing what your message is, who you're speaking to will help you kind of get through and come up with those ideas regularly and really, really easily. And when you have this kind of ongoing list that you can pull from, it's really, really hard to get stuck in this case of idea drought. And you'll always kind of have something that you can talk about. Even if it's not exactly what aligned with the last thing, you'll always have a topic that you can pull from and run with and research and put it out there. So kind of the next tip that I have is to have a workflow and set realistic due dates for yourself. I like to kind of manage the system, whether it's working for myself or working for clients, just to have a process to go through every single thing that you need to do from start to finish. So obviously the first thing you need to do is come up with a way to manage your ideas and to wrangle those all in and to be able to go through systematically from idea to a research phase to a point where you're drafting an outline, asking really solid questions to yourself about that specific topic. So you can answer those questions in a way that your audience wants to hear it, in a way that they can understand it. So by breaking down all the steps that you'll need to go through, it helps you kind of define the system that's going to work for you. And the system that might work for you might not work for somebody else, but the base of it is going to be the same, no matter who you are and what you do. And then assigning yourself due dates based on when you need to have that content published according to your content schedule. You can kind of work backwards from those due dates and know that you need to produce, say, 1 blog post a week for the entire year, and you want to publish them every Wednesday. Being able to know that ahead of time makes it really, really easy for you to be able to go and pull ideas, work through, create those content, and schedule it and have it published without really much thought put through from you. So content batching saves me a ton of time. So when I set aside time to work on my content, I pick up exactly where I left off and assign myself due dates to keep myself on track. I keep ideas stored in Trello, which helps me to feel not stuck and kind of not stuck for ideas, not stuck for what I'm going to research that day, or it's really easy for me to go get off on tangents and just get excited about a whole bunch of ideas. I like to be able to go and just systematically work through everything so that I stay on task, stay on deadline, and that I'm being consistent in my actions. The topics I'm researching go into their own board section so I can easily see my work in progress. And as I work on ideas, I move blog post idea cards through the process from idea to being in writing into editing mode, creating graphics, having it scheduled, going through it one final time to make sure that all my SEO stuff is in place, that I've got a feature image set up for my blog posts, all those little finite niggly details. I go through all of those, and then when it's finally ready, I set it to publish, and it goes live on the date that it needs to. So basically in Trello, I have a really long board. Starts off with a strategy section, moves through an editorial calendar. I have a list for blog post ideas, a list for ideas that I'm researching, and a place where I have that ideas can go on hold. I like to kind of get started on something, and sometimes it doesn't quite turn out the way I thought it would be. So I'll put it on hold and revisit it later. Oftentimes that helps just to kind of keep me on track. And being able to come back to something that might not have fit for the moment, but it might pop up again another time of the year. After kind of that on hold section is where I get into more of the content creating section of my Trello board, where it has a space for all the posts that I'm writing, the ones that I'm editing, graphics, ready to publish scheduled, and then everything that I have published for the entire year goes in one long list and date order so that I can quickly kind of flip back through it and see exactly what I have done already. I might need to refer back to a post that I published and pull a link and pop it on social media really quickly, or be able to pull it and repurpose it for a guest blog post. I like having that single place that I can go to reference every single thing that I need to do. And as I go from a little Trello card on the idea side, when I'm over into that writing phase, I just move those cards. So they kind of keep going on this whole journey until they land up published, which kind of helps me to keep on track. And if I get distracted or I get interrupted, that card is sitting exactly where I left it, which is really, really handy. So my next tip is when you go and sit and take time to create, you're going to focus on one task at a time. If that's something that really works for you. I find it works for most people to kind of focus in on one thing, whether it's you sit and take 2 hours and do research, or an hour and you just sit and write. Whatever those tasks are, I find it is a little bit more helpful to just pick one thing, focus on it, get it done, and then move on to the next thing. So in that, you're going to want to find a process that really works for you. You're unique, and the way you work is unique, and that's totally okay. Most people get hung up on that idea of thinking that, oh, there's a content system or an editorial calendar system out there, and it has to be done in this exact way. It doesn't have to be. Whatever works for you is what you're really going to want to lean into. The way that I produce content is probably not the same way that somebody else is going to produce content. For me, I set aside chunks of time and do each task each week. So I've got a day where I just do nothing but research, another day where I set aside a couple hours and I just go full on into writing mode. Other days I'll go in and I'll create graphics while I sit and watch a movie with my husband on the couch, or I have time where I do nothing but take those finished edited posts and I load them into WordPress. And by batching all of those different tasks together, that focused activity time helps me to keep from losing productivity from that task switching. So my brain works 100% best that way. If I have to switch tasks too many times, I get really frustrated and really confused really, really fast. So by focusing in on each task and kind of working through my system systematically in a way that works for me, I get more done in less time. And a great example of that is last year I was kind of feeling a little stuck for ideas. I wasn't leaning into focusing on my own business all that much, but I was flying around and meeting with clients in person. And on all the time that I had in airplanes, I kind of went, well, what ideas could I possibly come up with that my audience is going to want to be interested in? And on every single flight, I focused on a different topic. And I came up with thousands of ideas. I filled an entire notebook and so much content across so many different industries that I wound up turning them into actually products in my shop for other people. Because a lot of the topics that I come up with weren't even related to anything I needed, but I knew that other people would need and use. So by just sitting and focusing on one task for 2 or 3 hours on that flight, I came up with all of my ideas for the year. And even into this year, I'm still using ideas I came up with on those flights. And I have products already created. I just had to like take a little bit of time and make them pretty. But I got a whole bunch of things done in a very short amount of time, which was really awesome. So basically how I go through and take one piece of content, I create it, and then I multiply it. I like to, my key cornerstone piece of content is blog posts. I love to write. I'm not so great on video, as you can probably tell. I'm still new to blogging and podcasting and all that other fun stuff. So I stick to creating a blog post for my brand. I wind up taking that one post, making it really nice, put a lot of quality effort, time and effort into it, get it published. Once it's published, from there, I'll take and pull value or kind of interest-adding snippets out of that blog post. I take about 10 different snippets and I pull them out. And it can be as much as a couple of sentences, or sometimes just one sentence, or a key phrase that really stood out to me and that I think that my audience is going to interact with. And I load those into my Trello board, into just like the description of that blog post card. And I'll save all those, and I'll make sure that I pull my link, save it into that card as well, so that I have all of these post snippets that I can actually repurpose to social media. So then from my content, I put it on Facebook, I put it on Twitter, LinkedIn, Pinterest, and Instagram. So that's 5 platforms. So I take those 10 ideas and I make sure that I kind of do Facebook first. I pull those out, I redraft them for Facebook, put the link in with those snippets, you know, have a cute little call to action, whether it's read more or find out more on the blog post, whatever that is. And I'll do all 10 for Facebook. I'll take and do the same thing, basically have pretty similar wording, only I'll put that the link is in my bio for Instagram. I'll do kind of shorten them up. If they're really long, I'll shorten them down for Twitter. And for LinkedIn, I tend to leave them a little bit longer. I've kind of been noticing that my audience likes a little bit of a longer teaser. So I might add a couple more sentences, maybe add a bigger headline, something to make them a little bit unique for each and every platform. Then I'll take all of those snippets. I'll make sure I have graphics that work for each of the different image sizes. I've got some square ones, which pretty much work on Facebook and Instagram, some rectangular ones that'll work on LinkedIn and Twitter, and then a Pinterest image, which I pull straight from the blog post itself. And then I'll take all of those kind of snippets and the images, and I'll load them into my scheduling tool. And I'll do that out over 12 months. So I have 10 posts. I do one right away, one in about 3 days, one about a week later. A couple weeks later, I'll have another one, to the point where it goes all the way from about 2 weeks to 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 180 days, 270 days, and then finally 365 days later, I've used that one blog post and stretched it out to span an entire year. Loaded it, scheduled it, and basically set it and forget it. That allows me to take that one piece, stretch it out over the entire year, have, I don't know, maybe an hour's worth of work, and it'll keep driving traffic for an entire year. And it's kind of interesting to watch exactly, it might not go and be really popular and drive a lot of traffic right away, but a few months down the road, some of my blog posts I know pick up around spring, summer, some other ones kind of pick up in the fall, and I'll suddenly get like waves of traffic from specific topics that I've created, which is kind of neat to see. I use templates too to save me time in creating those graphics. Kind of shortens down the amount of time you have to actually spend rethinking and repurposing some of that content. And then I just kind of watch over Google Analytics to see how all those posts are reacting. I kind of monitor the analytics for each platform as well. And then I might go in and edit some of those snippets here and there, depending on how they're doing. Once that content is run for an entire year, I'll look and see if there's a way that I can actually update it a year later. And if it is, that kind of turns it into a piece of evergreen content. So if I have a blog post, say, on what to pin in January, that's something I know I can update every single year. And I can take this year's idea and I can reuse it for next year. I can even use it for the year after. It's kind of something I can keep adding to it, and it could go on as long as Pinterest is around, which is epic. So I've got some posts that I created, I don't know, 3 years ago. I'm constantly updating them and making sure that When you do that, though, the key thing I forgot to mention is that you don't want to have in your blog post URLs, do not put a date in them. If you're using WordPress, it's really easy to change the setting and to pull that date out so that it just sticks to the headline. And that'll help you make sure that when you do go and update it, you can change the publish date and Google won't penalize you. It'll actually treat it as though it's fresh content. But if you left the date in the URL string, it would always think it's old content. And that idea of turning it into evergreen content doesn't work if you have the date in the URL. So basically, like if you have a piece of content that's one-time use, that's fine. It'll get a year's worth of life. You can kind of put it on the shelf, move on. But if you have a piece of content that you can turn into an evergreen piece, you can at least get at minimum 2 years content worth of it. And it basically takes you the first, I don't know, say it takes you an hour to write that one blog post and another half hour to an hour to create 50 different social media snippets. You have 2 hours worth of work that you can stretch for 2 years. And then a year later, you can actually go in, take half an hour, update it, add some new facts, maybe add a couple new images to keep it fresh, and then again, schedule it out and it'll run for another year, which is pretty awesome. I've got posts that I actually forgot I wrote, and I get little surges in social media. I'm like, oh yeah, I did that topic 3 years ago, and it's still running for me, which is pretty awesome. So something to ask yourself is if content batching is right for you. It is if you're finding that you're always super short on time, but you want to put out quality content consistently. If you're open to new ideas and new ways of working to help you save time, you can use, if you find yourself that you can use a system and you can create a system that works for you and just stick with it, kind of make little tweaks to improve it for yourself. And if you love making lists on outlines and kind of linking information together, content batching will work for you awesomely. It won't work for you if you want everything done for you, if you want somebody to just hand you content. I wish somebody would hand me content, but that's okay. We don't live in that world. One day, maybe AI will take over. Who knows? If you're not interested in creating content at all, content batching, walk away. If you have no idea about your brand messaging or your pain points, you're going to have a really hard time batching your content. If you actually lean in, get your messaging refined, get your client avatar and your audience persona really nailed down, and you can create content around the products or services that you provide, you're going to have a really easy time batching content. But if you're off in any way about your messaging, your audience, or what topics can feed into the services you provide, you're going to really struggle to batch create that content. And if you have a negative mindset that nothing will work for you ever, and content is this dramatic thing, you're going to struggle with content batching. So get your mindset right first, approach it from a positive manner, and then you'll find that it really helps you. It might take you a little while to get into kind of a routine or a place that really works for you, but it's really something that's super, super possible that you can do every single time. When I first started out with content batching, I was using spreadsheets, and that worked for me. And I found over time, I spend a lot of time in spreadsheets. I go through a lot of marketing data, and I got tired of staring at the same spreadsheets over and over and over again. So then I moved everything over to Trello, and it gave me a little bit of a kind of a refresh, different perspective. And I like that for myself a lot better, because then I can visually see, oh yeah, those are the pin images I created with that blog post. It kind of keeps it fresh and keeps it unique. And I can start to look at even trends in the pins that I'm creating, or trends in the little headline images that I'm creating for those blog posts. And I can notice what's working or what's not working, or if I just need to freshen those images up, I can see that really, really quickly. And it's helping me to kind of refine where I'm going, and I guess how I'm kind of approaching my brand even, and how it's evolving over time, which is pretty awesome. So content isn't scary. It's not crazy. It's not overwhelming. It's all in how you approach it and how you kind of view what you do and how you can give back to your audience too. Listen to them. Listen to the questions that they're asking. If you're not working with anybody directly, listen in Facebook groups. You'd be amazed at how many people complain or put questions out there that you can really quickly and easily pull ideas from and be able to go and pop it in your idea list. Even if you don't create the content right now, you can really quickly spend a half an hour trolling groups and pull out tons of content ideas. I like to do that. And it helps save me a ton of time and see what's trending in the moment. And then I can actually put out content pretty quickly that solves that problem, or rearrange the order of some of my content to solve some of those questions really quickly and easily right now while they're kind of fresh on people's minds. So that's content batching in a nutshell. If anybody has any questions, pop them in the chat. I'd be happy to answer them anytime. If you'd like to steal my system, I have everything I've ever created, spreadsheets, Trello boards, the whole nine, in the Better Blogging Blueprint. The link is in the description of the live if you want to reference it, or if you want to like have a plug and play system. Yeah, and it's been great chatting with you guys tonight. Alrighty. Okay, so Linda mentioned that the hardest part of content creation is when it's not your only task. I would agree with that. I find batch creating content it helps me to kind of splice it in, especially around client work, which can get really crazy. What's my strategy for cataloging content, and what's the purpose behind cataloging? Awesome question. So I will keep I have many lists in Trello. So I keep sections of my Trello board that have every single post I've ever published, not only for me to see if I've already kind of gone through and created an idea around something, or if I need to expand upon it, but to be able to quickly pull links for social media. After a year has gone by and that content's kind of run the gamut on social media, I'll actually go through and pull blog posts together and create an ebook out of it. Or I've created lead magnets out of some shorter blog posts as well. And I've got a whole series of content that I put out 3 years ago that I actually turned into a course. So cataloging all that content together made me be able to step back and go, how can I take the same content and use it in yet another way that actually adds value and cuts down the time that it's going to need to take me to actually go back and produce something new for my audience. And some people like to catalog the content and actually store it on a completely separate Trello board. I like to keep it all within one board for all of my content. It's just what works for me. Again, go back to like what works for you and what's going to be a good reference for you. I also have some clients that prefer to have just like an archive or catalog sheet where they have like the topic, the link, and the metrics that I got from the first year of that social media post, so they can actually look at it, analyze kind of what was the best, what was the season, maybe rearrange and promote that content in a different season, like something on, say, day planning or time management might go super viral December and January, but it'll also pick up again, depending on who your audience is, around July, August, around that back to school season. So it kind of being able to catalog it and monitor the metrics together allows you to see when you can promote it again and again to drive traffic. You've already done the work. You want to get as much life out of it as humanly possible without driving your audience crazy, of course. Errol asked, so you put content on different platforms at different times? Yes, I do. I hate it. It's a pet peeve of mine. I hate it when somebody puts one post on Instagram and at the exact same time puts the same thing on Facebook and on Twitter and on LinkedIn, and every platform that I look for that one person that day is exactly the same. That drives me insane. You want to make sure that when somebody is going from platform to platform on the same day or in the same week, that they're getting a different snippet of content from you. That helps them to not get annoyed or aggravated like I get when I see the same thing everywhere. It also allows you to see, okay, I might put out, say, a post on, I don't know, some random topic, how the Facebook pixel works and how to install it on Instagram, and a post on day batching on Facebook, and I don't know, some other random post, how to do the Pinterest save button on LinkedIn. So every time I go from each different platform on the same day, I'm getting a different piece of valuable content. So I might not be interested in the first post on, Instagram. I might be super interested in the one on Facebook, and I might consider that third one, and I'll save it for later. it allows me to have a different touch point that people can kind of save, like, share, and be able to come back to it. So that no matter what you're doing or what you're producing for people, you're able to actually figure out where they're at right now. So if I have something on, I don't know, a topic on Pinterest that I put out on Instagram right now and I get tons of likes and shares, I'm going to create more content about that for that Instagram channel that leans into what people are wanting to hear about for a while. And then, maybe a week or two later, I might kind of subtly switch the subject, but at least I'm leaning into what my audience needs exactly right now. And you can kind of see that from putting different topics on different platforms at different times. And you also help see what times and what days, what seasons work for that content too. Tamara asked if I ever post LinkedIn and how do I repurpose content for that platform? Yes, I post LinkedIn a lot. I neglected my LinkedIn for the last couple of years, and I kind of had, again, content going out, scheduled out so far in advance. I went back and updated my LinkedIn profile last week and realized that I went from like a couple hundred followers up to like 800 followers in that 2-year time. And I was like, oh, my people are on LinkedIn. I should pay them more attention. I repurpose content for LinkedIn the exact same way I do it for every other platform. I go through and I'll create a long form snippet, and I find my people like long form. It's a little bit of a more robust thing, I guess. I don't know. I listen, they answer, they respond, it works for me. I'll take and create an image, link back to my blog posts. Mostly I put out blog posts. You can put content on your personal profile, and if you have your own business, you can actually share some of that same content over to your business profile, so it kind of populates both at the same time. And then you can kind of see, like, when people go and look at your business page, they'll be able to get content from you that you've created. But when they look at you personally, they'll be able to get the same content, maybe at a different time. Don't schedule it for the same thing at the same time, but kind of run through and reword those descriptions and have them kind of drip to LinkedIn the exact same way they're going to drip out to Facebook or Instagram or Twitter. So what would I recommend for a good cornerstone content piece if you don't blog? You can do video. You can have that kind of live on YouTube. I recommend having, no matter what medium you're doing, whether it's writing, so blog posts, video, YouTube videos, or audio like podcasts, that you have that content live somewhere on your website. A lot of people will find they'll create a ton of video, they'll only have it on YouTube. If YouTube decides to shut you down for whatever reason, you lose all that content. So having those posts kind of embedded, downloaded and embedded in your website allows you to have a good resource right on your website that you can control. You can pixel it. You can tell who's visiting it, who's interacting with it. It gives people a good solid place to put comments on it too. And then as you kind of say today you're not blogging, but a year or two from now, you're like, you know what? I should get into writing this stuff out. Video is great, but people want writing too. You can take the same post that has a video in it. You can add the written out piece. If you decide to get into podcasting, say 2 years after that, go in, plug the audio on the exact same blog post. Now that blog post has a written form, a video form, and an audio form. I guarantee you within your audience, there's somebody who they only want to read, somebody else who only wants to do video, and somebody else is like, I just want to listen to stuff. And so by having all three mediums in one place, not all at once, because that's crazy, but over time, getting to that point where if you're going to kind of get into different mediums, you can put them on your website in like the blog format, that people are going to be able to digest your content in whatever way serves them. And I guarantee it'll pay you off. Maybe not right away, but over time, it'll definitely pay off. Alrighty. So Linda asked in Trello, am I just putting a link to my images? In some cases, yes. It depends. Sometimes I'll just put like a link to the image that's saved on my website. I find I lose things. So I like to actually take the file and upload it to my Trello cards. Makes it easier for me. Again, do what works for you. If links work, fine. If you're saving them all in Google Drive, and you can just put a Google Drive link, awesome. If you're like me and you like to have like the physical file uploaded, upload them, whatever works best for you. And Linda also asked if I use a scheduler. Yes, I use a few different schedulers. I have, for my blog content, I use Missing Letter. That will actually take, and it'll pull snippets for me, saves me a little bit more time again. So I'll put a blog post out, it'll read that blog post, and it'll pull out snippets that it thinks the audience will like to read. It doesn't always get it right, but it does save me a ton of time. So I just have to like go through and edit them. But that posts my content to Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And then I actually take the same kind of captions, I optimize them for Pinterest. I'll schedule those in later and I'll put them out to Pinterest, and then I'll reword them again and I'll put them in later for LinkedIn as well. Or not LinkedIn, Instagram. So Instagram and Pinterest are kind of running through later. Everything else for me is running through Missing Letter. Alrighty. Any other questions before I sign up for the day? It's been absolutely great asking everybody all your questions. If any other questions come up as you're kind of reviewing this, I know I threw a lot of info at you and a lot of examples. You can feel free to DM me. You can find me on the internet. I'm on Instagram and Facebook, Twitter, all as She's Got Vision. When in doubt, ask Taylor. She knows how to get in touch with me. I hope you guys have fun with content and aren't feeling as overwhelmed by it. Just break it down, find a system that works for you, and stick at it. Put one foot in front of the other, and I guarantee it'll be awesome, and you'll love it by the time that you've found the system that works for you.